Hey everybody, this is Alexander Fitzgerald or Assassinato back with another episode of How to Win the Sunday Million. Let's just get right into this. Alright guys, so we're going to keep going through this tournament and we just saw this hand. Now there are some interesting hands that I did pass by here because most of what I wanted this course to be, these episodes to be, something. I imagine you guys watching one of these episodes before you go play or watching one every night. And I want there to be one big lesson or two big lessons you can take. One big testing moment. If I thought there was no chance in hell you guys could guess the answer and there wasn't really a concrete principle that really needed to be cemented down for you to win a big tournament, I skipped past the hand. But Mike was nice enough to do 6 hours of background information on a lot of these hands. So do check out that other video and you'll get a lot more analysis on some hands around here that I think you guys will find very interesting. So we go ahead and we caught him. We caught him. That's so brutal. Anyway, and all right, take a good look, everybody. Okay, guys, get a good look and take a guess. Time is up. All right. Raise to 2 times the raise. Now look, guys. A lot of you are going to say to me, hey, I can call there and that hand plays multi-way. Any good hand plays well multi-way. That's why they're good hands. Ace-5 of diamonds, you're right, does play a little bit better multi-way. But do you know why that is? It's because it's a little more likely to make nut flushes, and you have incredible implied odds most of the time. Do you have incredible implied odds here? No, you don't. In fact, you have a much bigger problem, which is both of these guys can jam over your call like nobody's business. And everybody is well trained to do that. If you said fold, I love the fact that you're trying to be aggressive or just getting the hell out of there. But this is a good enough hand versus a player who we know is taking some shots. He has to be. That we really should be coming over the top here. And again, we have just analyzed a hand just like this and had these two players jamming very liberally, and still we were doing just fine. Unfortunately, this one didn't work. But do you have any notes, Mike?
Yeah. I have a couple of key points here. 3-bet sizing and opponent's stack size. And, I have one more. And pay jumps. So not really in any particular order. So 3-bet sizing. I choose this sizing because it looks like I'm going to call the small blind and the big blind if they jam, which wouldn't be too bad with this particular hand. It'll have plenty of equity. I mean, if you are going to 3-bet and then call the blinds when they jam, this is a decent hand to do it with. But you don't have to. As I stated before, his 4-bet jamming range is going to be very strong in general. He may have adjusted since the previous hand where I 3-bet him really small in position and widened his 4-bet jamming range a little bit. But I don't expect that I'm going to get exploited here, which means that I don't think he's going to over-adjust, really. I still think that that this is perfectly fine, what I'm doing here, and that it's going to be profitable, and he's still going to be honest enough with his 4-bet jamming range that I'll get to go to a flop, or he simply is just going to say, screw it, I don't even want to get in this spot again, and just fold. He's going to do that enough to make this profitable. If I make it a little bigger, I can't fold to the small and the big blind, or to him even.
Well said.
You know, once I make it like, you know, if I make it 900, it's like, well, or you know, if I go full 3x and make it over $1 million here, I mean, there's too much money in there. Like, I can't fold this hand anymore. If I'm going to do that, I might as well just jam over his open, which honestly is, he's opening the cutoff. There's only 5 people at the table right now. We're right before the final table. Like, jamming is probably okay here. I haven't run the numbers, but just looking at the hand and the spot, I would assume that it's okay. However, in the off chance that he tightened up his opening ranges because of who he's opening into, which there's a decent chance here that he's not opening as light as I kind of wish he would be, because he's opening into XR1 who can jam on him, Hand to Brocken who can jam on him, and me who can just put like infinite pressure on him with all the chips. You know, he knows I'm aggressive. You know, in hindsight, it's probably not that great of a spot because I think he's actually stronger here.
You think he tightened up, probably?
What's that?
You think he tightened up after that first 3-bet?
I think so.
Nah, that makes sense.
And because of the way the stacks line up here, it's not a great spot for him considering I have the button and the blinds can just rip on him and he can do nothing about it. And his stack size is such that he can't really afford to be messing around too much.
I feel like we might be projecting a lot of the things we think about tournament poker onto him, where I find a lot of guys just can't put it into second gear, no matter how much you yell at them that they have to. I think what you did really well here is, I'll be frank with you, what I learned the hard way is I just used to always jam here. I just would go, oh, he's opening the cutoff, he probably opens a little too much, vaguely Scandinavian name, I think I'm fine. I usually ran the numbers and I was usually okay. The problem was when I was wrong, guess who lost half their chips before the final table? Right? Or, you know, on those good years, they call you with queens and you go, good game, buddy.
And you got there. Yeah,
yeah. You just look at him and it's like, sorry, dude, you have no shot. But whereas, okay, so I started getting curious and I started playing with your little 3-bets here. Before you and I were doing this video, I started getting into that like years ago. And one other thing you said there, which we kind of said offhand that we do need to highlight, one great thing about this about this 3-bet is, one, I've run a lot of numbers. If this guy just doesn't know what you're doing and starts opening up his range on the 4-bet, you're more or less making the same amount of money. You might actually you might actually be a little outperforming, right? Because a lot of people just don't know what to do with this, and then they hit the call button and don't really play perfectly on the flop or do enough check jamming, in my opinion. Secondly, if you just said this almost offhand, but I think this is a huge point. If you run into a hand here, you can fold. You can. A lot of times when I run the numbers, whether you call here or not is actually neutral EV. It's more or less the same because you do have a lot of equity versus them. But if in that case, I would just rather fold and keep 7.9 mil chips going into the Sunday million final table, and that is not an option if you jam. I do think this was a good spot. I do think most people will not take it. I do think that open is enough that you can get away with this move. Now, if you had jammed, I would have been very critical of it. If you had cold called, I would have been very critical of it. And honestly, given your chip position and the fact I just don't see most guys just cool off on the cutoff as much poker as I watch, he might be the one doing it, but I just gamble against it. I would.
Yeah, and this hand is like, if I had like, you know, a really, really bad hand,
right,
I might be more apt to like pass here, even though it's still a great 3-bet spot, because he feels compelled to play for it all or nothing.
Right.
But I mean, ace 5 suited.
Yeah.
It's ace five suited, man. It feels like aces.
You blocks things. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
9-6 of hearts, right? Like yeah, like if you three bet there with 9-5 of diamonds, I'd be like, okay, what are we doing? But I like this. I honestly did. Like not to. If you had folded, I get that too. But I think the really bad play was what I did for many years there, which was just like, oh sweet, cut off open jam. It's not a $12 180, man. The Sunday Million player, if you start with 7,000 players and you've got most of the professional tournament players on earth who play online playing that tournament, if there's one day most tournament players show up, it's Sunday. If there's one tournament they pick to play, it is the Sunday Million. If there's one time you should not just be like drop kick punting your stack, it would be right now. This 3-bet, I think, was the much better option. A fold, a 3-bet like this, but not a jam, not a call. So I thought this was a really good testing moment. Did you have any more notes before we push forward?
Nope.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the final table. Now, Mike goes into crazy number one player stuff in his individual videos on this, but while we're working together, I thought he showed some amazing final table fundamentals that we're going to drill on here, because this is the fundamentals video. People always ask me for a video on final table fundamentals. Mike puts on a clinic here. All right, guys. So, few more hands before this final table. And did you think you could sell fold equity here? That's what I assumed you were doing.
Yeah, he's been at the table with me for quite some time. I think he saw my 3-bet against Tranakine earlier, and then again with the ace five suited, I used a pretty small sizing, like 2.1x or whatever. Yeah, I am. There's a concept here that's like, it's so insanely important, but it also, it only comes with experience.
Right.
And it is being okay with him calling here and going to the flop.
Go ahead.
With ace king out of position, but you have a hand that's completely dominating everything in his range. But just being okay with it, you know? I mean, it looks like I have aces here or nothing. I don't think he thinks that I'm doing this with ace king. So, yes, I am selling that there is fold equity. The illusion of fold equity is like a really common thing with me. But it's messed up, right? Because you guys have seen I'll do this with a hand
Jack 10 off, yeah.
there is fold equity.
Right.
Right? And that's the beauty of the game, right? Like you can't just do this stuff with your eyes closed. Your eyes have to be open. You have to understand if you're doing it with X, you have to do it with Y also. So yes, I'm leaving him room, and I'm also inviting him. I'm saying, hey buddy, look, the water's warm. Why don't you jump on in? You know?
Well,
and then there's piranhas in there. They're going to eat his feet.
The thing I had a very similar hand come up one time, and something I can't stand in hand history reviews is when someone says something is terrible, and somebody saw a 3-bet like this and said it was terrible, and I put it a little bit more gently than this, but I pulled up Cardinals EV, Flopzilla, and I said, prove to me it's terrible. Like, just fill it out. Because here's the thing I know. With these short of stacks with ace-king, it is really hard to make this hand not profitable. You would have to be doing a lot of exceptionally stupid stuff post-flop. And Hangebraken would have to be on some other level stuff to make this a problem for you. Now, I think what actually happened here is you really know this guy, and I'm thinking, if I were him and I saw you do this and I was sitting there with ace 10, I think you're going to get me one way or another. Where I don't know. If you had just out and out jammed on me, maybe I don't think you're jamming ace-9 suited. Maybe I don't think that you have that. A lot of people won't do that before the million final table. I think you did put yourself in a good position here. But yeah, you have to be accepting of the fact, hey, once in a while, this flop is not going to go my way. Right? But hey, I got 7.3 mil and I just set myself up to have 10 mil at this final table. And if I lose a c-bet on the flop, such as like, you would not be doing this with a shorter stack. You would not be getting as cute, right?
Right.
That's just my guess. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not planning on folding this on like a lot of board textures.
Right.
I'm actually just playing this like it's aces.
Right. The stacks are so short. I see your point.
Yeah.
I see your point.
Once he calls 224K
yeah.
more, there's 1.25 in the middle, and he has slightly. I mean, it's like this stack to pot is like 1.2 to 1 or something like that.
Right. And there's a lot of boards he just goes with it. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Then I go into like inducing mode on a lot of board textures where I'm going to bet call the flop and he's going to show up with he's still going to show up with like king highs and ace high hands that I'm crushing. Sometimes he's going to like have whatever ace 5 suited and he flops a 5 and now I'm reverse dominated. But for the most part, like I didn't expect him to fold.
Right. Yeah, that's so strange. I
expected him to call.
To be fair to him, I see a lot of guys get worked over there by a guy like you. And maybe he just went, oh, okay. Well, I will accept having this many big blinds. But yeah, I was surprised by that as well. And you have analysis of that in your other video. So we'll let people go into that.
Yeah.
I love this. I know you're jamming or folding. Yeah. So
this is an easy open. This is an easy open.
Yeah, we went over an open like that earlier.
XR1 is super tight, so it just
okay, so it's even better.
Yeah.
I got the nuts. Yeah. So you have to type no shot in the chat.
Yeah, I do.
After you call.
I said, oh, you ran into it, buddy, and then I call.
You cracked the queen 5. Well done. And let's go.
I do that more live, actually. I'm like, oh, sorry, man, I got it. And I just garbage.
People like that. They don't like it when you slow roll good hands, and this, I like that you didn't play for all the chips pre-flop. I see a lot of people. Actually, if there was one, you have all these stacks that can rejam on you, and you'll know to fold to XR1. You'll know to call Honda Bracken. He'll have to define his hand. You'll know Brendis. He'll have to do something versus Brendis. You'll get a timing tell. But I see a lot of guys like 3-bet here, and I'm like, do you think he's jamming 6s on the Sunday Million bubble? It's like, well, no. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, Trinucane might jam 6s and 5s.
You think so? You think?
Maybe. But actually, we're almost 40 bigs deep to start the hand. Like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, look, man, if people that was right before the final table. But if people are 3-betting as like a default and being aggressive as a default, I would say like that's a better default than being too passive.
I agree.
As long as you're being aggressive, like calling someone down is not aggressive. Putting chips in the pot is not aggressive. Having the lead in the hand is aggression, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if people are doing that as a default and they don't understand why, I think that that's a better default than like trying to fold your way to first place, because it will never happen. Like you'll see people who have been in the game for a long time and they play a really solid style, and that maybe would have worked 10 years ago and gotten them some wins. It just will not work
No,
anymore.
sir.
You can't get in there and fold your way to first or second place. You can wait for hands and you'll find yourself at some final tables and you'll get seventh, eighth, ninth, sixth, fifth, third if you run really good, pick up some
Mm-hmm.
hands. And then like on those insane rare days, you're gonna actually win the tournament. But like you put someone who plays really aggressive, doesn't understand why, they're gonna outperform you from 18 down. Because the dynamics change as it gets shorthanded. You know, people don't pick up hands as often. And your mindless three bet is just gonna print you money. Whereas the guy that is like, oh, I should raise or fold, and they keep choosing the fold option, they're just anteing and blinding out, and they're not picking up chips.
Well, it's really funny you said that because I put together a video that I didn't think was saying a whole lot, but it was called Poker's Most Important Thing. It was a promo video. And essentially, I just showed. I pulled up Hold'em Manager and I used my database because that was the most ethical thing I could do. It wouldn't be very fair to show one of my students' databases just in case anybody could suss out who that was. And I just showed, look, you three bet, you can make money. And I just showed three bets with a lot of different hands making money. And I showed if they just call you out of position, you're printing a lot of money. And there's a lot of times, people aren't even four betting queens. You know exactly what they have when they four bet, and you know they're opening everything. And I showed on most C bets, you were turning a profit. Most pre-flop raises, you were turning a profit. Obviously, in certain positions, and I thought this was very ho-hum stuff. And it was more like, what's poker's most important thing? It's about keeping the betting lead. Mike, I got emails for the next 4 months from people saying, I used to always call because I was scared, but seeing those numbers made me want to try out three betting. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I got to my first final table in the really heartwarming emails that you love, right? And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I'm really glad you brought that up. With that eights flat, I was just being dismissive because it's like, oh my God, you have this big stack and all these guys that can jam and define what that guy's open size is. But you're right. Like if you did three bet there, that's not that is a better default than always call. And
Yeah, I can break that spot down real simple in like two sentences.
do it.
It's a flat because it's like the middle of your range. And it's before the final table, so you don't really necessarily want to play a gigantic pot with like the middle of your range. And neither does he. And you have position on the original razor. But basically like if you're gonna three bet there, do it as a bluff. Or with like your range should be like kind of polarized there. And then you're just like calling with the middle of your range because your hand has too much value to three bet. And then once you get four bet, you're like, well, now I just turned this into a bluff because I'm hating life. Like he jammed, I don't want to call. He four bet, I don't want to five bet all in, and I don't want to call, and I don't want to fold.
Right.
It's like putting yourself in. There's like no good outcome, or there's fewer good outcomes. So, yeah, basically just split your range up that way. Like three bet the top, three bet the bottom, and call with the middle. And that's what a lot of people do in a lot of spots.
Well said.
And it's a really like basic strategy, but it goes a long way.
Right. And you should only, if you are going to three bet the middle, it should be when you're very deep and you're versus a very level one play straightforward opponent. Right.
Right.
And yeah, okay, I think that's a good way to put it. All right, guys, you've been looking at this situation for a bit. Let's quiz you on it. All right, gang, take a good look at this spot. What is your move? right, guys. What you really should do here is fold. There's no trick to this one. You, if you were thinking like maybe I could pull off this, the last occasion on Earth you should be debuting new material is the final table of the Sunday Million. This is something I really want to get across. So this was a really good hand because, okay, maybe you got a little something, maybe you could try something. A lot of people are thinking, and you'll see guys so attached to the fact that, hey, I'm at the Sunday Million final table, only a superhero could win this tournament. I got to start behaving like a superhero. So if I have a decent hand and I'm in a murky situation, I got to start doing something with that. No. Dance with the girl who brought you there. Your normal game was good enough to get you to this final table. It'll take you further. Okay? Do not start debuting new plays now. Now, I just wanted to bring that up before we finish up this episode. Mike, did you have any notes on this hand? I know it's a fairly basic one, and you already told everyone that XR1 is a bit of a nit. And is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
He's actually the most unbelievable nit I've ever seen in my whole life.
Really?
Ever. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the truth. We'll talk about it more in some future hands, but he's super tight. He has to call the big blind if the big blind jams because of the way the stacks line up. And Trinokeen knows that. And it's not like he has 20 million here, you know, for him to 3-bet call. He's not 3-bet folding here because of XR1 stack size. Trinokeen absolutely, like, he has like no bluffs here. It's not a spot where people bluff. He's not bluffing. And ace-queen is not even close to putting, like, for me, it's not even close. Like, it's a clear fold.
Okay, everybody. He kind of gave it away. I was thinking.
Yeah,
no,
sorry.
You didn't give it away, but I was about to say, what would you do with ace-king there? I was thinking I'd probably mock, honestly, if this is me. What would you do?
That's a really interesting question. I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
Like, if I had ace-king off here?
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Wow. Like, I'm not even loving it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a garbage spot, right?
That would be a much closer spot. Ace-queen is like a clear fold. Ace-king off, I would have a lot of trouble folding it.
I'm mock, but I'm weird. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't know if I've gotten lazy or what. But
I wouldn't. You know, it's a close spot, right? So like, UTG opened, he's tight.
Mm-hmm.
UTG2 or MP1 or whatever it is, 3-bet him, and he knows he's tight, and he has to call us all in. So like, the bottom of Trinokeen's range here of non-paired hands is ace-king.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he shows up with ace-queen suited, eighth queen, ace-queen suited. But honestly, I think he probably flats ace-queen suited, and he might just simply fold ace-queen off here.
Don't go broke with a queen in your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I really wouldn't be loving ace-king. Yeah. Like, I may actually fold, and I wouldn't mind if someone showed me the hand history and told me the dynamic and then folded. I also would be like, okay, well, if you want to get it in, like, I get it. You're just going to be chopping with ace-king a lot and then flipping and getting it in dead sometimes. Right. So it's not that great to get it in, but...
It's also... My whole thing is like, look, I'm at a major final table. I'm not playing a big old pot. If I get it all in there with Trinukene, I just gave a bunch of money to Brendis, XR1, Stupid Dan, DMS5, Jane Andes. Like, I'm just walking around the table handing them hundreds before that flop even gets dealt out, regardless of what happens. Right? Yeah. And that's my big aversion. Like, is it plus EV to jam ace king there? Yeah, I can see that. like plus ship EV. I just weird me. I'm just like whatever. But
you know what's funny? Like,
yeah.
sorry, I
No,
cut
go
you off,
ahead. Go
man.
ahead.
It's really interesting. Like, let's say that you pass on that ace king spot, and then later in the tournament, or later at the final table, a couple people bust, so you get your ladders without risking your 8 million, and then you open the button with king 4 suited, and they fold. You've just like mitigated whatever
Yeah.
chips that you forfeited in this hand. I mean, you're actually in for an ante, but assume that you
Right.
played this orbit and you paid the blinds, and then the blinds go up and you steal the blinds. Like, you just made up for that spot. Like,
That's
the
a
point I'm
really good
making
way
is
to put
like,
it.
it's okay to pass on those spots as long as you're willing and able to like pick up chips in other spots, like opening the button light or three bet. Like, look, if the positions were different and this was like cut off, it was like hijack to cut off, and I'm on the button with ace king, totally different.
Mm-hmm.
UTG to MP1, like, no, this is not a great spot with ace king at this final table specifically.
Uh-huh.
If this is a 200 rebuy final table, one of those old gangster 200 rebuys where it's all regs, I'm not folding ace king. Get out of here.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't matter how many chips I have.
Oh, the 200
Seriously, because everybody's really good. But it's okay to pass if you feel like you have a skill edge over the rest of the table, and you can pick up small pots in other places. You don't have to put the 8 million in a seriously marginal spot.
Yeah. It's also like, okay, how much money do you make if you're right here? It's like a big blind and a half. Well, how often are you right there? 60% of the time. So on average, what am I making? 0.8 big blinds. How do you get that? Well, I can raise the button later and make 4 times that if I keep my
Yep.
8 million chips. If the people to your left are kind of simple. God, the 200 rebuy. I haven't thought of that tournament in a long time. We're going to go to the next episode. If you guys just want to go to the next episode for more strategy, go ahead and do that, because I'm just going to babble for 1 minute. I won the 200 rebuy the first time I ever played it, and the reason I won it is I didn't understand. I was 19 years old. I didn't understand stack size dynamics, so what I kept doing was I kept 3-betting large enough amounts that people thought I was committed to a jam, and they kept thinking like, oh, he's got it, right? And they're like shark scoping me, and it's like he plays like $20 MTTs, right? And everybody gave me the benefit of the doubt for like an hour. And finally, one guy jammed on me, and I folded, and I was getting like 2-1, right? With ace 9 of spades. I was like, nope, I'm done. And I folded, and everybody figured it out at the same time. And they all started jamming on me. And I just decided to have queens and aces like 5 times in a row, and I shut out the tournament, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. So remember, kids, it's better to be lucky than good. Oh, no, I chopped that one. Anyway, but yeah, so whatever. But anywho, let's go to the next episode, everybody.